back, coming to you live. Yes, live from Black Pearl Studios, where we talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things. Y'all, I'm gonna need to holler at my peoples down in Monroe County. Could y'all get some things straightened up down there? Do I need to make my way down there and say, shake all this out? Crossley, where you at? Let's get this all straightened out down there. You know, it's time to, Bloomington may be the blue bubble, but there's some other stuff going on that we got to get shook up. And so, guys, whatever's happening around our state, we cannot allow that to take over and manipulate the love that we have for each other. So, listen, I know it's a struggle. You got people, driving cars into people. You got people out in the woods acting like Deliverance. I'm just saying, do I need to come down to Monroe County? That's all I want to know, because I'll come down and put the hammer down. You know how a sister be. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, today in Marion County, it is mandatory for you all to wear your masks. Please, please, please understand this. There has not been as much revenue coming in to the municipalities as normal, right? There's no tourism. We've been shut down. They will find a way to ticket your behind for whatever it is to generate some money. So please understand, wear the mask unless you want to be broke. Okay, I need one of y'all to turn your speaker down just a little bit because I'm getting an echo. But that's on me. Anyway, so make sure you're putting on your mask. Keep everybody safe around you. Please remember, all of that is important. It's not just about you. It's about the people around you. Don't listen to the numbskulls. Listen to the scientists. Listen to the doctors. They actually know what they're talking about. They've gone to school and everything. They graduated. I'm telling you, please listen to them. Don't listen to the numbskulls. Okay. I'm going to talk real quick. I got a vent. Betsy DeVos and 45 have really been on some shenanigans the last couple of weeks about school funding, what's happening with they demanding that the schools open up, but they haven't actually offered any real solutions or any plans or even a suggestion on how these school systems can open up these schools safely. Everybody keeps saying, well, the kids don't get it. The kids will be fine. They have not once considered the teachers, the cafeteria workers, the janitors, the bus drivers. They ain't kids. They all grown folks, and many of them are in high-risk groups. So I'm sorry, until they figure out a way to protect everybody and not just the children, they need to chill the hell out, right? Betsy DeVos, again, she is trying to divert public money. Please understand that she has pretty much told them, you need to take public money and give it to private schools. I'm sorry, that's not how that works. That's not how that works. She has been doing everything she can to defund public education to make sure that not every child has an opportunity to get a good education. She is on her way. And one of their homeboys is Jim Banks. He was offering up a bill, Representative Jim Banks up in District 3. He was offering up the bill saying, we're not going to give you no money if you don't open up. I'm sorry. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. So we need to hold Representative Jim Banks and Betsy DeVos and all of them other clowns, hold them in check. But here's the thing. You notice how they started messing with our kids, a la open the schools up, right after the homeboy got busted for knowing that the Russians were targeting our soldiers. Now, y'all know I don't normally spend a whole lot of time on what's happening at the national level, but I guarantee you we have a significant number of armed service members who are Hoosiers. And the idea that they were I'm going to get to you, girl. The idea that somehow or another, the news cycle has managed to its ADD is worse than mine. The news cycle's ADD is way worse than mine. We have lost focus on the fact that there were hits. They had hits out on our service members. Our president, I can't call him that. That orange fella knew about it and did nothing about it. Now, I know we have an election coming up, and it is very important, and I always tell y'all not to pay attention to the noise at the top of the ticket. However, in this particular instance, I'm going to tell you, pay attention to the noise at the top of the ticket. Because if we are actually harming and if we're allowing foreign entities to target our soldiers, Okay, all of y'all sitting around screaming, I don't want to wear a mask, my freedom, my First Amendment right, my Second Amendment right. Check it out. If we don't have an army that can protect us, you ain't got near damn right. You feel me? So we need to make sure we're taking care of our armed service members. They're overseas doing things that we don't know why they actually there. We still don't know, but they're there and they're our soldiers. And we need to make sure that they are protected. See, it was real quick to take that off the burner because as soon as you start talking about people's kids, oh, wait, my kid. No, don't lose focus because you may have a kid that's in the service. You may have an uncle, a sister, a brother, a mother, a daughter, whoever in the service. Cousin Allie, I don't know who you got. But let's not lose focus on what's happening to our servicemen and women. Because that is unreal that got pushed to the back burner so quickly. All right, that's my rant. I'm not even talking about Governor Holcomb today because, he is so not phenomenal that I could pick a subject any day of the week to talk about this dude. But you know what? I want to get us back on track and focusing in on that State House, baby. I'm trying to tell you, we have candidates. You know me, I'm always bringing up, you may have met him before, you may not have, but the whole goal is to make sure that you stay informed about who is actually going to be on our ballot. That is so important. I hear a lot of times people say, how do I do this? How do I find this? How do I get this information? One thing is for certain, Turn Left will bring you the candidates, as many as I can, between now and November. So let me introduce them to you. So I've actually known my first guest for probably 4 years now. I actually went up to visit a few years back in Fort Wayne when Courtney Trich was running for office. That's exactly where I met him. I had him on the show in 2018. First of all, I'm going to tell you, and I've made this mistake in my life. Do not try to debate this fella, okay? Just don't do it. Don't do it. I have looked at it and gone, I probably should have went over there to the slides because he got the swing sets. I should have just let it go. Y'all give it up for my man, Jorge Eduardo Fernandez, who is running for House seat District 50. Welcome to the show, Jorge. How you doing, my man?
Doing well. Glad to be on, Dana.
Love to have you back. All right. I just met this amazing lady, 20 minutes ago. It happens. It happens. But you know what? Anytime I can see a bunch of women on the ballot and get a chance to get more than 23% representation in our state house, I am excited. She just came off a win in the primary. Y'all, I want to introduce you to Tabitha Bartley, who is running in a state Senate District 7. You know we got to flip some of those Senate seats. Tabitha, welcome to Turn Left.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. I'm so glad you guys are here. So I'm going to, Jorge, we was just partying a couple weeks ago. We was turning it out. So I'm going to let Miss Tabitha go first, all right? Miss Tabitha, tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Yes. So I'm Tabitha Bartley. I am a wife, a mother, and a warrior. I'm also a disabled Marine Corps veteran. I was born and raised in Lafayette, Indiana. I attended Jeff High School. I'm a proud Bronco. And I moved away for 8 years to serve in the Marine Corps. While I was in the Marine Corps, I got to embed myself in local communities across the nation. And I decided I wanted to come back to my community that I was born and raised in and make an impact here. I now live in Monticello, Indiana, which is just right up the road from Lafayette. And I'm happy to be back in Indiana to make a difference.
That's what's up. So tell us why you did, tell us what was it about your upbringing that said, because you're service oriented because you're an ex-Marine. I'm going to give you a couple of extra bow downs because I couldn't play in the mud like that. I wasn't that kind of girl. But what was it in your upbringing or in your youth that made you become service oriented and then translating that from being in the military into running for office?
Well, I had a public school education, and that was a huge impact on my life. The amazing educators and the amazing coaches. I played a lot of sports. I coached volleyball. I was in show choir first edition, which funny enough probably helped me more than anything when it came to boot camp. I could hold a pose forever, and I was really loud. So really, it was that upbringing and kind of that environment of the team effort and always doing things as a team and always giving back. And my religion and my beliefs and my family are really important to me. And I think that made an impact on me. And the Marine Corps just molded me even better on how to interact with people from all different communities and how to figure out what the problem is and find the solution. So I think both of them really molded me and who I am. And I always say that the Marine Corps helped me to find my authentic self, which is, I think, the biggest thing we're trying to achieve in life.
Honey, that's one of my hashtags, authentic self. And that is so important and it's valuable. Let me ask you this, because I've not really asked it before, and I try not to be, insensitive or stupid. But tell me, as a veteran, how your military service has helped you develop as a woman. We already know as women, we struggle a little bit more than our brothers. They don't understand sometimes what it's like out here. But how has it helped you be a confident woman?
I had amazing leadership in the Marine Corps, and my gender actually mattered a lot less in the Marine Corps than it does as a veteran, which was one of my biggest reasons for running. I had a lot of trials when it came out, and I'll probably talk more on that later, that were directly linked to my gender. When I was in the Marine Corps, my gender didn't seem to matter that much. It was actually more of a value given. I was able to talk to young women and tell them that, you can raise a family in the Marine Corps. Me and my husband were dual military. I had 3 beautiful children when I served in the Marine Corps. So there's a lot of misconceptions. But again, going back to finding my authentic self, in the Marine Corps, I was known as Blunt Bartley. I found my authentic self, and I was able to learn tact and the leadership skills that the Marine Corps teaches you on how to utilize that to get the job done. And I always say, I didn't just pull a seat up to the table. I made sure my voice was heard, and they listened and they respected it. So that's what the Marine Corps gave me, that would I have found it somewhere else? Probably, but not as fast as I did in the Marine Corps.
Well, one of the things I love about vets who are running for office is that they teach you leadership from day one. I've been complaining a lot lately about how we have a bunch of elected officials, but we don't have elected leaders. And I would love to see how some of those traits that you learn, like I talked to Stan Albaugh, he was breaking it down to me. And I would love to see more of that. And then maybe we can deal with some of the veteran care that we need to be dealing with if we have real veterans, right? If we have some sprinkled about.
Yeah, and I mean, those issues are something that I'm extremely passionate about. Again, that I'm sure we'll talk about tonight, but there's a lot of issues with access and accountability across the state. Honestly, Indiana is about 25 years behind when we're looking at our veteran care, and that's atrocious. And there are a lot of easy solutions that should be presented and should be talked about. But the biggest thing I run into is that veterans are very much a PR stunt. I'll take a photo with you. I'll go to this event, but then that's it. There's no actual work being done, or when one small thing is being done, that's enough. We did this. And so that's where I think we need more veterans, because I think it's not just about being a leader, it's being a servant leader. Absolutely. That's my big takeaway. That's why I'm running, and that's what I think we really need is people who are servant leaders. That's what the job needs.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. Jorge, I am not arguing with you tonight. I am not debating with you tonight. I am just going to let you share your story, and I'm going to just nod my head and say, he's right. Tell the people who you are and where you come from.
Okay, well, I'm Jorge Fernandez. I was born and raised in actually Miami, Florida. I came up here, Indiana, for college, and after I graduated, I stayed up here. I've lived in Allen County since graduation, so for about 10 years now. And I'm a teacher. I taught in the urban school in Fort Wayne for 5 years. And then this last school year, I was actually teaching at Manchester, which was a different, totally different environment, North Manchester. And what I saw working in Fort Wayne Community Schools when I was working there was a legislature that didn't really understand the struggles of teachers. They didn't understand that we were, becoming a state that focused on teaching to the test. They don't want to say that, but just the focus on standardized testing, the impact on teacher evaluations. The policies really didn't make sense. And the art, civics, science, which is my subject, they didn't seem to the focus that they needed to have, because it was just what is tested, English and math.
Right.
That's, why do you need anything else? And
no, we don't want to be well-rounded humans.
Of course, yeah. Why would you want that? So that's what got me in a first run in 2016, and they're still not listening to teachers. No. They're still not listening to teachers. So I decided I'm going to give them that choice. I'm going to be that choice in the ballot to give them a pro-public education candidate. The incumbent in my district has been there way too long. Even people, regardless of where they are on the spectrum, he's been there since 2002, and even people that say I'm friends with him will sometimes tell me, yeah, he's been there too long. So when the incumbent friends are saying, or people that consider them the incumbent's friends are saying he's been there too long, then you've probably been there too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so one of the things that I love about you is you're pretty brilliant. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. I know when to step away. Like, if you say something and you make a strong point and you don't see a response from me, please know I have conceded. Talk about your love of politics. You're not just a civil servant. You're not just a teacher. The way you are able to articulate facts that most people are not aware of, and the way you are able to present statistics. What subject do you teach, first of all? And then what is it about this politics thing that, I know I can ask you anything and get a good answer.
Yeah, a lot of people think I'm a math teacher because I just the math, the math in the political realm, it just comes to me. The math and statistics just in policy come to me, and that's because science is really based around math, and I think a lot of people miss that. Mm-hmm. So being a science teacher, I'm used to like reasoning through a problem. I understand the scientific method. I understand kind of the logical what is a logical progression, and so I've just managed to figure out different things, getting involved in the political system. And if I don't know something, I'll go and I'll research it. And yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. I think you talked about teaching to a test. We're not teaching kids how to even research information. I'll be honest, I know that I'm the deputy chair of engagement and my job is to engage, but sometimes I get a little frustrated when people ask me what something is and literally all you gotta do is Google it. But people don't know they don't know that it's really easy to find. And I appreciate, and I'm not dissing anybody. Please don't stop asking questions. Please don't. I need that engagement, because the next thing you know, I'll have you out knocking doors when you ask me a question. But I love that way, the way that you engage an issue or a situation. You don't necessarily always offer up opinion. You bring information with you. If you've never ever seen him on a post on Facebook, y'all missing out. Just don't debate him. You might not want to do that. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and bring both of you guys back in at the same time, because let's talk about the issues. Let's talk about what's going on in the world. Let's talk about, man, we got a whole lot happening right now in our government, in our state. We got some issues that we definitely need to resolve, and unfortunately, we don't have the right types of leadership. So let's go in first with, obviously, public education. Let's start there, because that seems to be the one area that no matter where I go in the state of Indiana, public education is an issue. What are you guys seeing in your areas that need to be addressed, and then from a statewide perspective?
Yeah, and I'll go first just because I think, Jorge, you have more knowledge than I do. But one thing,
smart. Don't follow his behind. You're very smart.
One thing that I'm seeing in District 7, which a lot of it is rural, is a broadband issue. Personally, my son, when we were doing e-learning, there were multiple days that it would just completely drop. We wouldn't have internet. And so that's something that we have to address, and that covers more than just the education. But when we're looking at this pandemic and how we're trying to approach it, and is school going to start? Is it not going to start? We have so many students within my district that e-learning isn't an option, and it's because they don't have internet. Like, there's literally blackout zones of no internet access. So for me, that's a huge thing in my district, which impacts more than even just education. That also is care for veterans. That's medical care when we're talking remote care. That's local businesses. It's affecting everything. So that's a big thing. The second, we're having teachers, leave and not wanting to stay and going to schools and districts and areas that can better pay them. And one of the solutions that I see is more continued education credits that we provide them, that teachers don't have to pay for themselves. When I was in the Marine Corps, I ran the educators workshop where, educators in 4 days got to earn 32 credit hours, continued credit hours. And it was a huge help to them. Not only that, they learned a lot about the Marine Corps and how to be better leaders themselves as well. But that's specifically in my area, kind of one of the big targets and one of the things that we have to address now. But then looking further, we have to be proactive. We have to look at what issues can we help to avoid. And again, I was a public school graduate. I think we need to support our public schools over our private schools. I don't think vouchers should be going to private schools that can discriminate. And I think we need to bring back the 21st Century Scholarship. I was a recipient of that. I didn't utilize it. Instead, I went into the military. But if I hadn't had that, college wouldn't have been an option for me at all. I wouldn't have had a choice of what I did. So those are kind of my biggest things right now, and the things that I can see and that we need to do specifically in District 7.
Go, Jorge. It's all on you, baby.
Well, I am running on, I have like 6 main points: pro-public education, anti-corruption, pro-democracy, pro-environment, pro-criminal justice reform, and pro-worker safety. And I could go on with the kind of issues we're facing here as a state, but we're dealing with these systematic issues, and as much as I appreciate the effect that local government has, at the state legislature we have so much capability here as a state to do way better than what we're doing, so much so. And the gerrymandering, that what they did in 2010 when the Republicans took the state house and they used it to gerrymander the state and really take away the impact of the voice of a lot of people in our state is really atrocious. And so again, what brought me to actually run, I've always taken interest in policy and in government, but what kind of drove me to run is these issues we're facing in the legislatures, that when you look into it, follow the money. There's these select group of individuals that keep pouring money into our state, trying to impose their ideology on the people of the state, rather than listening to constituents, regardless of where they are on the spectrum. That's what brings me into the race. We 2020, we've got to change the state legislature. We've got to have an independent redistricting commission for that'll impact us for the next decade. We've got to get some criminal justice reform, ending cash bail. We've got to do away with private prisons. That's a horrible, the private prisons putting money into our system. The bail bond, people that are making money off bail bonds that, are probably a lot of the reason we don't have, that we still have, cash bail. The Supreme Court, Indiana Supreme Court has tried to limit that. If people are paying attention to state and local politics, they would see the enormous impact that the state legislatures, what it's done, and then a lot of the time, actually, what it's failed to do, its impact on our state. We need to be addressing our problems. At the federal level, they have a lot of power with purse strings. Our state, we have limited as far as debt goes, by the Indiana Constitution. So we need federal support on the financial front a lot, but on the state, we need to support our teachers and not force them, our teachers, our communities, and not force them into an unsafe situation. It's simple as that. We've got to give communities the green light to do what's needed to do what the state and the federal government have failed to do, and that is create systemic policies that will reduce the COVID outbreak, so that as much as possible. I mean, if we could control this summer better, we would be in a better position for the fall, but we're not seeing everything that needs to be done.
So when we speak specifically about public education in the state of Indiana, what policy specifically to public education would you want to alter or change, Jorge?
Wow. Well, let me go ahead and say this session that the decoupling of standardized test scores from teacher evaluations was we got a pause on the accountability, the A through F system. The 15-hour externship bill, which they did last session, they went back and they made that optional, which was what Jennifer McCormick was saying the whole time. Those are three policies that, I mean, if you look at the decoupling, for example, that went all the way back to 2011. The Republicans just went right into Tony Bennett's, education kind of reform platform. And here they are 9 years later, realizing the mistake. But these, those won't be permanent kind of solutions if we don't get a state legislature that is actually serious about listening to the communities. It could just be, it's an election year, we're going to do this for now. And then we could be in a way worse spot in 2021 if we don't get people that are actually serious about continuing, those kind of fixes and improving from there. Obviously, it's funding. Voucher funding we need to phase out that system. We don't have, as well as I do, the discrimination happening in private schools. I mean, public money comes with public strings. I don't think that's not a, kind of partisan ideology. That's the way it should be. There's accountability there, and oftentimes the GOP will throw out accountability, but then they don't want accountability with private schools. And virtual charters, we got to get some auditing there. We got to get there's a lot of proposals.
But they owe us money. We need to get our money back from the online. We got to get our money back.
Yeah.
But Tabitha, let's look at it like this though. Like you chose the military as an option to go to school as a means to take care of that. And we've seen in a lot of this COVID, like I've been saying it since I came back on air, COVID is just like pulled this blanket off of all of the cracks in our foundation. The areas of our state that are going to be suffering the most from all of this, it's not going to, yes, the urban areas will suffer. But our rural areas of Indiana where there is not adequate high-speed internet, we have a candidate that's on we had a candidate on a couple weeks ago from Southern Indiana. He is also a teacher, and he did not have adequate internet access to teach his kids. Not to mention the kids don't have it. Let's talk about where how we teach our kids and public education and the funding that is required for that, and wrap that around that, infrastructure needs and how all of this is all intertwined, kind of like what Jorge was saying, but it's in this instance, it's very specific.
Yeah, and if you look back at the 2016 elections and you look at who donated money, Comcast is one of those big people who donated money. And guess what? Where I live, there's a monopoly. I only have the option of Comcast. So I think that looking at like who are you taking money from as a candidate is a huge thing. And I'm a huge proponent that like change shouldn't start when we get elected. We should be proven that we are change makers way before then. And that starts at the beginning. And I've been doing it, since I got out of the Marine Corps. But one of those things is I'm not going to take money from people who are then going to try and make me a puppet. And so when we monopolize systems like that, that's where we don't get options. And that's where we can't hold people's hand to the fire because we can't say, well, we'll go get access somewhere else because we don't have an option. And again, it affects more than even just the education system. It's the care. We had a huge issue with the pandemic, veterans not getting the mental health that they needed because one, the Indianapolis VA is not set up to do remote healthcare, mental health, the way that they treat. And then there's so many veterans, rural veterans specifically, which is almost a majority of veterans in Indiana, that don't have internet access, again, because we've, the same issues we've talked about before. So there is a lot structurally that needs to change. And obviously veterans is one of my biggest, I'm one of the biggest advocates for, because there's a lot that veterans and the veteran community can impact economically. They can impact when we're talking education. They can impact in all of these ways, but it's such a small population that, again, they don't seem very valued in the state of Indiana.
And you just said something to me that A, I'm flabbergasted by, and B, I'm like, shoot, I need to go on and get my Black Pearl, give them a call so they can talk to them. You're saying that the VA is not equipped and was not set up to do virtual counseling? I mean, here we are. You guys are at home. I'm at home. We're set up to do virtual calls and interviews, and we're streaming live to Facebook. Do you know why they're not equipped to do one-on-one conversations or group settings?
It's honestly, a lot goes into it. One was, the VA hospitals were going to be an additional unit if needed for the pandemic. They were going to be at an initial spot when there's any sort of a pandemic. The veterans hospitals have to open up to the civilian population and help with that, which I'm all for. However, again, like I said earlier, Indiana's VA system is about 25 years behind. So there's programs and assets that we're just not equipped to handle, or we don't handle properly. The Indianapolis VA had a big issue with losing a lot of records, and just a accountability issue that we should have more oversight as a state that we don't. I personally, and this is, and I'll tell my story now. So I had multiple organ prolapses after a hike in the Marine Corps after having a baby. I was looped around and told I was going to be medically held, and then was told 3 days before my end of service that my condition wasn't life or death, even though I had organs falling out of my body, and that the VA could fix me. And so within a week, I had to figure out how to transition my family from South Carolina to Indiana, because that's where my support system is. And then I had to fight for multiple months to get care within Lafayette. I had just started a new job, and they were trying to tell me that to get women's care, which is considered specialty care, even though every woman needs it, I would have to travel over an hour to Indianapolis. Over an hour, there, back, and not counting my appointment. And I would continuously ask, what about the CARE Act? What about this? What about that? And it would just get pushed to the side because there was no accountability. There was no one that I could follow up with and say, this was my issue, or this person told me this. And so that's when I started a veterans group for women veterans. And I found out that there are a lot of veterans, women veterans, who have this issue, and had to fight to get seen and to get taken care of. And I had a moment where I was sitting outside the Purdue Armory, and I had been fighting with the VA and on the phone, and the guy was just so rude to me. And I ended up bawling. I'm not much of a crier, but I just hung up the phone, was bawling, and was like, I understand how a veteran can get the point to killing themselves. I wasn't suicidal. I had an amazing support system, but in that moment, I completely understood how this transition out could cause a veteran to kill themselves. I shouldn't have to fight to get care for something. I mean, yes, I signed my life away, great, and was willing to give my life.
You didn't sign your life away. You don't say that. You did not sign your life away.
What I mean was, I was willing to give my life
for
this country. Can't take care of me in the aftermath. And so I started, a women's veterans group, and then that led me to talking in the veteran community, and led me to, what I can do more, and more needs to be done. And so I'm going to run for office and make the change happen.
And you know what?
Reason to wait for it.
I have seen many times where, if an athlete is kneeling for the anthem, or no matter what it is, if you criticize something that America is doing, that the United States is doing, it automatically flips that it's a criticism, that person is making a criticism of our military service members. And I have always had a major problem with that, especially when we already know this has been going on for a century, half a century. They've done documentaries after documentaries and books about VA care, and not one of our presidents, and that includes Barack Obama, Bill Clinton, and Carter too, They didn't do what was necessary to take care of our veterans. And I will say this, I think we are still falling short. And if you go back to any of my other shows, you will know that I've said this a many a time. I feel like if a person signs up to, again, I'm willing to give my life, you're not signing your life away. I think that's a totally different, you're willing to give your life so that I can have a life. If you make it back, man, look, you go get your first house on us. You're going to get all of your medical care on us, no matter where you decide to go. Where no matter what, you don't have, if you are not and if you're in a county or a town where there's not a VA, you should be able to go wherever you are and use your VA status to get medical care. I'm getting upset because it just drives me crazy to think that we are asking these young men and women, because it ain't old people doing it. Old people ain't joining the military. That you have to, the age limit is 27, or is it 32? Anyway,
it depends on which branch of service. Okay. We have different age requirements.
Anyway, my ass is 50, so I'm old. We are asking our young people to give of themselves, but we don't take care of them when they get home, and I have a major problem for that. And I am so glad that we have. You're the second veteran, but you are specifically talking about women veterans, things that I've not heard about before.
We have 33,000 women veteran in the state of Indiana, and only 5,000 of them utilize the VA healthcare system here.
That's unacceptable.
5,000 veterans move out of Indiana because they don't get adequate healthcare. So it's a huge issue. Again, maybe it's a small community, but this is a community that can directly impact the economy. This is a community that can directly impact the community, and this is a community that, again, doesn't need to be a PR stunt. I'm just a huge proponent for, I'm not going to use people as a show off. We need to actually do things to make change happen and figure out what people's needs are to make their lives better.
And see, Jorge, here we don't even recognize what that soldier actually went through while they were deployed, if they weren't deployed, what kind of health issues that have compromised their personal being. And then we already have a healthcare negligent system. Indiana was already rated 43 in addressing COVID when it first hit. We have the highest infant mortality rate. We also have the highest maternal mortality rate. Talk about the healthcare in Indiana, Jorge. And if you jump on the veteran thing, do it, baby.
Yeah, we do not take care of our veterans in Indiana like we should. There's a veterans advocate, Lisa Wilkins, who has been, I don't know, Tabitha, if you know who I'm talking about, but she's been very vocal about the issues. And we saw how the Holcomb administration has treated this, because if you remember, there was the head of the Veterans Agency that was involved in a scandal involving how they were giving out funds. And when Lisa Wilkins came up to I think it was an American Legion meeting is up here in Fort Wayne, and I got to hear about some of the veterans' issues, or at least she intended to come. Mm-hmm. I don't know if she actually made it, but I heard some of the veterans' issues. It was actually legislators were invited in Northeast Indiana, and they said they invited all the area, legislators. And I know, at the time, Phil Giaquint had a fundraiser, but only one so he couldn't do it, but only one showed up. And it was Chris Judy, and Chris Judy is a veteran. He's a Republican, but he's a veteran. And none of the other, my opponent didn't show up, Dan Leonard. And this is somebody that Lisa Wilkins had been talking about coming up with, some kind of resolution, not even a binding thing, but I think it was just a resolution that it's kind of way back in my campaign page, Facebook, but I discuss it just, about how women are treated in the military and how they treat rape, victims. Very,
talk about that trauma.
There's this, it's trying to work your way up the seniority to get somebody to actually listen to you is just extremely difficult from what I've heard. So that we need legislators that listen to people when they're willing to come forward to veterans that have, these stories of the system not treating them well. And I think at one point I thought maybe we should make our Indiana Veterans Administrator an elected position. Just like the superintendent of public instruction was at one point, in order to get some accountability here, because, we have administration after administration as far as, the governor goes, that I don't know what's going on, but they're not doing enough. And so even when the state legislature said, please spend this money, they have reverted funds on veterans, and that's unacceptable.
That is unacceptable. You know what? Every candidate should be running on that. How you going to divert money for our veterans? I'm running on the next time I run, whenever that is, 2050. I don't know when that'll be. But but our Indiana healthcare system and how I think, what, you brought up something big. I'm switching topics, and I don't mean to do that. Again, my ADD is as bad as everybody else's. Both of you have said follow the money and how funding is spent. We have a legislature that always wants to hold on to their credit rating. I have been in a conference where literally Governor Holcomb's sign-off was AAA rating. And you are telling me that we've just got to discussing how there's not enough funding for public education, and there's not enough funding for infrastructure needs and our veteran care. And we already see that people are struggling, since businesses are shut down. But all these folks seem to care about is the credit rating. What good is the credit rating if you have a sick society, an unhealthy one, I should say, the way I want to say it, unhealthy. What good is a good credit rating if we have an uneducated society where they can't challenge and create a higher living wage for themselves because they're not skilled? And we have a damaged society because they were willing to fight for our freedoms. They come back a little damaged, and we don't even take care of them. What does that say about people who care? Y'all give me your opinion about people who care more about a AAA rating than the Hoosiers that need the help and the resources that we absolutely have.
I just don't think that you need to be in the position you're in. I think that morally and ethically that says enough about you if you value money over people. I mean, if I personally believe if you value anything over people, that there's a moral and ethical bridge that cannot be gapped, and I don't see how it can, especially when we're talking about the age of people who are elected officials. It's not like we're super young or going to somehow have some major life changes. And maybe someone will. I'm a full believer that maybe, but do that when you're not an elected official then. Figure that out and figure out some morals and ethics. Because to me, it's not acceptable, and we have to hold those type of individuals accountable.
Absolutely. Jorge?
Yeah, it's really shameful how this state operates in terms of the budget surplus. And, we saw with, Mitch Daniels, the cuts that were made to public education. He actually took, he tried to make it like it was just him, but the state legislature actually put, for the $300 million in cuts. They quietly sneaked in 2009 special session, the last time we had a recession. And so they cut public education. There was $300 million in the reserve funds that they just found. Like in 2011, they just found it. like, oops, we missed $300 million that's sitting there. And if you look back, those cuts weren't really needed. And so, here we're hearing that the Holcomb administration is going to be cutting back, the non K-12. Says K-12 is fear the knife. But at the same time, Jennifer McCormick was just saying, why don't we get rid of iRead? And, she was the only vote on the State Board of Education this week to get rid of it. And the rest of them are like, oh, yeah, $300,000, sure. Let's
because they're getting kickbacks, man. They are getting kicked. Oh, my God. I had a guest on Pam it might have been Pam. Couple weeks ago, Pam Deckard, who's running up in 88, my favorite district. She had detailed out how the testing and how the same company that does the testing creates the textbooks. And like, I'm not sure if it was her or not, and I apologize if it wasn't her. But the way that money is like so intertwined, of course those folks, and they're getting those kickbacks. They're getting, and people understand, we're not just talking about secret money and black ops and all of that, which I like black ops. My name is Dana Black. I'm not talking about secret dark money, which I'm dark too. I like that too. But I am saying you can go to the Secretary of State's website and see every person's who donated to every candidate and every elected official and every dollar that they have received from whatever organization. You can see it. And if you are disgusted, like I am, about how we choose to allocate our dollars, find the money and hold them accountable. Tabitha, I think you're right. I think there's some morals and ethics here. The right always used to tout family values, I mean, but if you're ethically bankrupt, why are you leading? What did you guys do in the military when you found a soldier that wasn't, living up to what it was to be a Marine?
Yeah, I mean, you're held accountable. That's the beauty of the Marine Corps, that Marines are held accountable and that leadership is held accountable even when their junior Marines aren't doing things correctly. It has to be above just the one level for change to really happen and for people to really be held accountable. I don't believe that it can just be at that one level. On a lot of things, it's also, okay, what are these, in the Marine Corps, what are these junior Marines being taught then? It has to be more than that. Is it just the individual or not? So it was always diving deeper, but giving the people the options and the leadership skills they need to change. And obviously that's a huge thing in the military, but you have to first be held accountable for your actions.
Yeah. And what do you, Jorge, when you have a student, and see, I did this on purpose. When you have a student who you see is on the path of being ethically challenged, what do you do as a teacher and as an educator and a molder of minds?
Yeah, you're supposed to, talk to them, try to address it, try to, guide them where they should be, talk to their parents, and see what they can do. Sometimes the parents are like, I don't know what to do. What should I do? I'm like, okay, well, good job, but, you try to, again, get the student on the right path. And by the time they get to high school, it's tougher because they're kind of set in their ways that, when they're very, very young is kind of when they're, most open to being, their character to being shaped. But in high school, you can still have an impact, as far as, where they go and the direction they go. You want support at every level. You don't want your administration saying, that, oh, well, that's okay, if it's not okay. Mm-hmm. But you do want the support at every level, but you're trying to guide them. You're trying to, instruct them in how they should be. Yeah. And people.
So one of the challenges that I like to talk about this next subject because young people bring it to my attention every time I go somewhere as well. So like my parents and my grandparents talk to me about public education, but my young people talk to me about our environment and our need to really address the environmental concerns. A lot of people think that we can't address environmental concerns in Indiana. Our footprint on the world is relatively small, but we can address environmental needs. Talk about some of the ideas that you have on how we address our environment. Either one of y'all can go. Okay.
I think it goes, again, back to accountability is a big thing. Here in District 7, we have the SIA plant that is a non-waste plant that does things the right way. Not only do they do things the right way, they give back to the community. And so when we're looking at companies and who we're bringing in, obviously we need these jobs. This is work, manufacturing. These are the type of jobs that we do in Indiana, but we can hold other companies accountable with an example of this company does it. You can't give me a reason to why you can't. And SIA gets so much out of this community too, right? So what's the give and the take and what's the need? So we need people who can bridge those gaps as well and have those conversations of why does it value you? and what are they going to get out of it? And and again, looking at the rural community, we have to support our agriculture as well. And if they're struggling, then they're not going to have new advances. They're not going to have new assets that they need to be able to change or to adapt, especially to new technology. I think that's one of my biggest things. I mean, we have Purdue, this huge asset that is trying all these different things in all these different ways, but we need to find a way to implement that across the board and try that across the board. But again, our rural and small farmers, they don't have the luxury to try something new. They can't afford it. So I think that that's something that we have to approach and look at as well. But holding these big companies accountable to meet the standards that other companies have shown, that's where the standards can be.
Yeah. Jorge?
Yeah, I think we have a big issue in this state as far as the corporations and taking advantage of the system. I mean, Huntington saw all these jobs go out, shipped overseas with, United Technologies. Carrier was in Indianapolis was also
Wait
part
a minute.
of that.
Wait a minute. Didn't Trump save those jobs?
Mm.
No, I thought he said he was gonna save them. Oh, my bad.
It was they definitely cut jobs, and then I think the ones that they saved weren't the kind of the blue collar jobs that people were expecting. And at the same, they got all this taxpayer money, and now here in Huntington County, which is part of the district, Andrews, the governor didn't even realize this about the Andrews situation. They have not had clean water for weeks now. They had to turn off their water because of vinyl chloride in their water system were above, EPA threshold. Yeah. And the problem is not gone. They shut down one of the wells. They don't because of these companies, because Raytheon bought United Technologies, and they inherited the assets. Then they don't want to take responsibility. Andrews is suing them. They don't want to take responsibility for this vinyl chloride that is polluting Andrews' water and is limiting what they can do at a time of COVID that you need hygiene. The governor should come in with some CARES Act money there, because he's sitting on, I think he said he was going to spend $200 million on PPE or something. It's like, we don't know where the rest of the $2 billion is going to go. I think we're still waiting on that. Spend some money there. Maybe the county commissioners could help, but no, Andrews is trying to figure this out. They're suing the company, and the company they could do. They have donated to the Indiana House Republicans, Indiana Senate, Republicans, and to the Speaker, I think, Todd Houston. They've donated, to all these candidates here, and they don't want to actually pay up to deal with a problem that when they bought this company, they should have known that they were getting them, that Andrews had this problem, and that they should take care of them and make them whole.
So I want to make sure that I get this straight, and so that all of our listeners understand. Yeah. In Andrews, they have a water crisis. Regardless of how it happened, and we know that how it happened was negligence, whether they say it or not, they have a water crisis. And the governor of the state of Indiana has $2 billion at his disposal, and he has not already earmarked and allocated dollars to Andrews, to the citizens of Andrews who have over-chlorinated water? Is that what you're telling me?
Get this, though. That he was asked at a press conference on the Wednesday after, this happened on a Friday. The Wednesday after this happened, he had no idea that Andrews was had their water shut off because, they had shut down the well one. They were dealing, I guess, with a drought, so that they had, low water in their other two wells, which had high levels, but just not beyond the EPA threshold. And he had no idea. And he, this is the person that I thought he appointed the head of IDEM, the Indiana Department of Environmental Management. So,
he did.
He had no idea. They didn't, I guess the IDEM man, whoever was the head of that didn't think it was important to tell.
See, an epiphany just came to me. Democrats, why aren't we just telling people they are willing to kill you for money. I mean, why don't we just get done with all of the, the death penalties and sacrificing your grandparents and your parents for the economy? And why don't we just flat out say, you know what, they're willing to kill you for their profit, and just be done, and that just be our damn slogan. And then when they ask, well, what do you mean? We just go ahead and break it down, because obviously dumb slogans work on certain individuals. So why don't we just say, you know what, Governor Holcomb will kill you, and has been killing you. We already knew about these soil issues up in Lake County. We know that Evansville is got four super polluters, I can't remember, super polluters down around them. Why don't we just tell Hoosiers, Republicans will kill you for a profit, and just be done with it? I mean, I am just like, I'm so upset right now. How the hell do you not take care of children and elderly and everything? Oh, I know what. Tell them that their dog is gonna get chlorinated water. Now you don't mess with nobody's dog. I'm sorry, I'm being silly, but it's like, yeah, man, that's a bit of information I did not know, and I'm glad you shared that with us here on Turn Left, so that we can light a fire under Governor Holcomb, especially when, you're right, COVID, everything needs to be sterilized. You have to wash your hands 100 times a day. But if you're washing your hands in over-chlorinated water, that is going into your body. That is a problem.
Vinyl chloride, there's a threshold, and it was above that threshold, and it's in the soil. So the thing is that even if they're not dealing with it on one day in their wells, that's stuff, when it rains, when, it gets back, that's not going to go away. It's not going to go away. And Raytheon, if they want to be a good corporate citizen, should just, instead of being like fighting this lawsuit, should be working with Andrews to actually deal with the problem. Maybe drill some new wells.
Man, but they don't care. That's going to cost them money. They don't care. We don't want to do anything that's going to cost us money, because I can always, get an employee from somewhere else if you die. I mean, we should just say it.
The governor's sitting on this money.
Yeah, let's just say.
I don't know what he's going to do with all of the CARES Act funds. The media's been asking him forever.
Yeah, well, we'll just say he's willing to let you die to hang on to that $2 billion.
Yeah.
Y'all, thank y'all so much for coming on Turn Left. I really appreciate. Tabitha, tell the people where they can find you.
Yep. So you can find me on Facebook, Tabitha Bartley for State Senate, the hashtag Bartley for Indiana as well.
And do you have any virtual fundraisers coming up? Any phone banking opportunities so people can come and help you?
I do, and everything is posted to my Facebook page, so that's the easiest way. Or you can also email me at bartley4indiana@gmail.com and get on our volunteer roster so you can get all of those updates as well.
I love it. Jorge, how can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me at facebook.com /candidate Fernandez. So, yeah.
Fundraisers, phone banking?
I'm hoping to do some phone banking here soon. I could have a whole conversation about van access with you. I know you're the deputy chair, but no.
Listen, I have a friend that's like really, really close to me, and she is also in the party, and she's an elected official, and she jumps on me every opportunity she gets about the cost of van access, and it's like, who's gonna pay for it? Somebody gotta pay for it. How we go? I get it. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. Y'all, Democrats are awesome because we don't want to kill people for profits. We want people to be able to create their own profits by living. Thank y'all so much for coming on the show. Tabitha, it was fantastic to get to meet you. I was hoping that 2020 was the year I spent more time up in Lafayette and in West Lafayette. Obviously,
come on.
Well, COVID messed all that up because I hadn't really. I hadn't spent a whole lot of time. And I've been to Terre Haute, spent some time down in Evansville, but I hadn't been in West Lafayette, and I was looking forward to it. I know Representative Clinker, and I just wanted to get up there and spread some state party love up there. Maybe we'll get it done. Jorge, you know how much I love Fort Wayne. I'm gonna be back up. I got some. I had some Latino caucus work that I was planning to do up there before COVID kicked. So I love Fort Wayne, and I love what you guys are doing up there. I love your city council. You guys got it going on up there. But thank y'all so much for putting your names on the ballot and deciding to become civil servants and run for office, because you are servants and you care about Hoosiers. You don't want them to die for profit, and I appreciate that. Y'all, Indiana's own Dana Black, turn left. This is what we do. You never know what you might learn when you listen to this show. We're not going to occupy too much of your time. We're just going to do 60 minutes. We're going to have as many guests on as we possibly can because we want to talk about Indiana politics from the left side of things and why it is so incredibly important that we flip both supermajorities. Let's make it happen. We ain't got to just do one. We can do both. We already know Jim Merritt don't care about nobody. Oh, he's not up this year, though. Dang. Anyway, Indiana's own Dana Black. I will holler at y'all next week. Peace.